Hey everyone, welcome back to Big Ol' TCG. It's been a while, but I'm back to do a tier list for the Nats season. We just completed week one, and the meta has changed pretty drastically since I last did a tier list. So I want to get in here, talk about it. It might be a little bit of a longer video while I discuss it. I haven't uploaded in about 2 months. I've been really, to be honest, grinding in terms of practice since I went to Bologna for the calling, and then my Nats is in a few days this weekend. So just been doing a lot of practice personally and with my team, but wanted to get in here and make a few videos today. I'll also have a budget Bolton video coming out in a few days. Bolton is really strong right now, and you can get the deck for about $100. And a Fang video for the deck that I'm bringing to my Nats. Both those deck techs coming out in the next few days as well. But I wanted to do the tier list first, since this has changed so much, and people probably want to know about the meta heading into the second week of Nats here. So first, we've had some living legends. New is gone, who is a really big threat to the format. Very powerful disruptive hero, and that opens up the field a bit for some blue-based strategies, some aggressive decks to open up the field. We also had High Seas released, with Gravy being kind of the standout hero. The allies are really strong. His cards in general are pretty strong. His rates are strong. Um, and so that is kind of the standout deck from High Seas so far. We haven't really seen much from Marlin or Puffin, even though I think Marlin is pretty strong. I think she just takes a while longer to solve. But starting with that, let's look at the strongest heroes that are S tier. There's kind of three S tier heroes right now. If you look at most metas, these are going to be the heroes doing the best. Syndra is the premier aggro deck of the format. She is, yeah, very strong. Her rates are really good. And most importantly, she gets to play Mask of Momentum, which is really, really good into Gravy. Since he has allies and hitting them counts for Mask of Momentum, she can clear allies while drawing cards and just has a pretty amazing Gravy matchup. She also has a pretty good matchup into Verdant as well, who seems like she would be kind of the premier disruptive deck, or the more controlling deck, but ends up still not having a great matchup into Syndra here. So Syndra is kind of the, to me, default best deck in format. You need to have answers to her in your deck. You need to know how you're beating this aggro strategy, and she will probably be the most played hero at most nationals, I would expect, just because she's pretty simple to play, probably the easiest hero to play in the format right now, and also is very powerful. So for most people, it's kind of a no-brainer to pick her up. You have a pretty high chance of doing well, and you don't have to put that much brain energy into it. So I think she's a great pick. If you want the last minute pivot, if you're not sure who to play, I would recommend Syndra. The only annoying thing you're going to face is mirrors. It's basically whoever goes second wins. Obviously, that's simplifying a lot, and it's not always true, but generally, whoever has the tempo will keep it in the Syndra mirror, and it's kind of a coin flip without a lot of agency. But Syndra in a pretty amazing spot. Gravy Bones right next to her here. He's the best board based deck in the meta. Kind of the only one, not really the only one, but only the real relevant one right now, after Enigma left. So he's very strong. The allies are great. He has some really powerful cards like Conqueror of the High Seas. His blue base is very relevant. He just does really strong things. He can even disrupt a little bit mixed in and just hits really high numbers every turn. Yeah, he's pretty strong. A lot of people are playing him because he's also quite fun. On the opposite end of Syndra, he's quite difficult, so I wouldn't recommend just picking him up for the event. I would say only pick him up if you've already practiced him for, well, I guess since release basically, so a few weeks now. He takes quite a lot of practice, and he's not a hero I would recommend playing for your Nats unless you've done a lot of practice, because he requires so many reps to get used to. But if you want to just learn a hero for the future and not just for nationals, he's really powerful. I think he'll stay strong. I don't think they're going to hit him with any bans or anything like that. So I think he is a great hero to pick up and plan on putting reps in for a few months to really understand. So Highly recommend Gravy Bones. Really fun to play. Has a cool theme. I mean, he's a pirate necromancer, so very good there. And then Verdance. Verdance can do two really powerful things. One, she has the Earth package, which is a very nice defensive slash disruptive package. You get some extra D reacts with Rootbound Carapace. You get some really powerful disruptive cards, especially Felling of the Crown, but also Plow Under is pretty solid. So you have the strong Earth package. Barkskin is a really nice defensive chess piece. You get Plume to even play a fourth Felling if you want it. So she gets that package that Florian was already known for. But she also can then do a pretty insane setup with Rampant Growth combo, which allows her to, of course, basically deal like 30 plus damage out of the blue. Well, out of the blue, you have to set up some potions first, but then when she pops off, there's not a lot most decks can do about it. Arcane Compliance doesn't work. Oasis helps a little bit, but not that much. Overall, she can just really blow people up if they're slower, and if they're faster, she has some disruptive potential. She's very much the Icelander of the meta. If you played during Icelander meta, she's a wizard that kind of keeps you in life total as you walk down. So she's trying to stay at the same life total as you as best she can. And once you get to under 10 life, she tries to kill you in one turn with Stormstriders. After the release of Burn Bear, the new card in High Seas, it just deals 6 arcane damage. So with Stormstriders and then Waning Moon, you can deal 9 arcane damage on the opponent's turn. If they, play all their cards out, have nothing in hand, nothing to stop it, and they're at 9, they're basically guaranteed dead. So if you are playing Verdant and you can stay at equal to your opponent until you get down to 9, you can just explode them. The best tip for playing against Verdant is if you're a faster deck, at least try to stay above 9 life if you can, because otherwise it gets a bit scary. Okay, so I'd say that's S tier. If we're just looking at S tier, then you should obviously just default to playing Syndra, because I think she beats the other two decks in S tier. But, of course, A tier is going to be made up of counter decks. That's usually how these tier lists work and how the meta works in general. You have a few really powerful heroes that are just doing something, they're kind of doing their own thing, right? Like they're not worried about what other decks are doing. Syndra is just trying to kill anyone as fast as possible. Gravy is just trying to build up a bunch of allies. Um, Verdance maybe is a little more of a counter deck, but is at least still trying to just blow people up with a bunch of arcane if she can. So they're doing their own thing, but the counter decks are trying to show up to beat those. So first we have the Assassins. Both of these decks, really nice disruptive decks. They have good game into Syndra. That's kind of what you're hoping to play into when you're on the Assassins. I think your Gravy and Verdance matchups are a little scarier, but certainly doable. Both of the Arachnes are good picks. I think it's kind of personal preference a little bit. Mario is a little slower-ish. It is better into the other assassin, funny enough, Slippy. It's a little less aggro and more disruption, whereas Slippy, has the go again. He's more of kind of an aggro assassin. I think they have a slightly different matchup spread. Like maybe I'm a bit happier playing into Gravy Bones as Slippy, for example. But it's more which one you're into. Both of these heroes won Nats over the last weekend. And so I think either one's fine to pick up. If you want to play a disruptive deck, Assassin, these are probably the way to go. Also in A tier, we have Azalea, the third disruptive deck, also here to beat up on the Syndras. She's also pretty good into Verdance. And then Gravy, not as much. I think she has the classic Azalea issue of having trouble clearing board. So you're mostly hoping to dodge the Gravies and then hit the Syndras and Verdances as Azalea. Still a great pick. Has a lot of potential to Living Legend over the next few weekends. Maybe she doesn't, but I think it's pretty likely she'll be gone by the end of Nats. So these are kind of the premier disruptive decks, I would say. And then also popping up is Warriors. So Warriors have a okay Syndra matchup. I think it's maybe slightly Warrior favored, maybe 50-50. It depends on who you ask, I think. They have a very good Gravy matchup. That's kind of the main reason to bring it. And then they have a bad Verdance matchup, so you're hoping to dodge the Verdances. I think Kasai is probably the best of the Warriors, but Fang and Dorinthia are also both pretty solid. I would not recommend playing Olympia, whatever his name is. I think Olympia. Is there any other warriors I'm missing? I think there's so many warriors in the format. Oh, Bolton. Yeah. So, yeah, the warriors. I think you could play any of them. Maybe some of these should be an A tier. I mean, I like Feng, and he's who I'm playing, so I would say he's an A tier hero. But I'm just gonna put one of them in A tier. But you could kind of play any of the warriors. All the warriors feel quite favored into Gravy. They just clear the allies really efficiently while still presenting damage. So I would say if you want to beat up on Gravies, play Warrior. You also have a decent chance into Syndra, and then yeah, usually not great into Verdance, but hopefully you can dodge the Verdance if you're on a Warrior. And then you also have a good matchup into the Arachnes. Well, maybe not good, but it's not bad. It's kind of like Syndra, where I'd say it's a 50-50. You're a little unfavored into Azalea, so these are the two you're hoping to dodge the most as Warrior. I'd say this is also kind of personal preference. If you just wanted to pick one up, I would say Kasai, but I think you could play any of the Warriors and you would have a decent time. Next on the docket, we have Prism. Prism, still an A tier hero. She does, I think, win against all three of the S tiers actually. If you're on Herald aggro, you should beat Syndra's and Verdance's and Gravy's all pretty well. Her rates are pretty great. You could definitely lose to a Syndra and a Verdance with enough poppers on their side. Gravy, I think, is kind of free for Prism, but Syndra and Verdance, I think, are definitely losable. And if they tech hard enough, the issue for Prism is if anyone techs hard enough, you can lose, right? Like if the Verdance is oops all poppers, it's unfavored now. If the Syndra is packing like 4 poppers for some reason and they hit too early, they'll probably kill you before you can set up. So that's Prism's issue. With 32 life, you really can't stumble or get high rolled at all. So she's a bit of a risky pick, but I do think she can definitely take down a field if everything turns up right for your deck. So this is kind of a, yeah, of course people are always going to play Prism because they like the Illusionist heroes and they like Prism, but I would say she's a little more of an RNG hero in terms of how the deck shows up and how your opponent's deck shows up. For example, I played Fang at Bologna. Fang has a pretty bad Prism matchup, maybe like 30 to 40% chance to win. But I played against the Prism in my first round. That he was a really great player, but he drew like basically no heralds for his second and third turn, and then I was able to just kind of steamroll from there because I had such a huge lead. When he lost 2 turns with 32 life, there's really like no room for error as Prism. So a risky deck, but if you like that style, it's still a good pick and it can beat really anything with the right draws. Dash IO. Dash IO. Um, I'll put her in B tier. I'd like to put her in A tier, but I think she has kind of similar consistency issues to Prism. Also starts at lower life. Also needs to draw kind of correctly. Is a good deck, but and she did lose her worst matchup in new, but still is a little scared of the Earth heroes, and can still lose. Is favored into Syndra, but can still lose it. So I think people similar to Prism will just play Dash IO because she's really cool, and I think she's an awesome hero. I hope she continues to do well, but yeah, also a little RNG heavy. Let's see who else is going to round out A and B. I think sorry, not Verdance. Vincent is a bit of a sleeper pick right now. She has a really great Syndra matchup, which I think is the main reason to bring her. You're pretty favored into Syndra, and Syndra is the probably most common deck at most nat, so you're happy to show up there. I don't know as much about these matchups. I think you're probably unfavored into Verdance and maybe even or favored into Gravy. But the other matchup that's really nice is you're also heavily favored into Prism. So if your Nats has a lot of Prisms and Syndras, I think that's a good reason to bring Vincent. I think she gets A tier just because of the Syndra matchup, though. That's all you really need. If you have a good Syndra matchup, I think that's enough for me to put you pretty high up. As long as you're an okay hero outside of that, obviously. But I think she is a decent enough hero and she has a great Syndra matchup, so that'll get her up there. Florian, he's gonna stay down in B tier. He got quite a few bans, obviously, and Yeah, he's just not what he used to be. The Scepter OTK build was really strong, and now we lost Scepter and Germinate. I think he's just too weak at the moment. If you want to play an Earth hero, I would highly recommend Verdance. She basically does everything he does, but better. She does almost identical game plan, and then also can set up for this huge 30 turn kill, and has Storm Striders to kill from 9 life. So there's if you were going to play Florian, just don't and play Verdance. I think there's really no reason to play him right now. He's not like a horrible hero. I mean, he's in B tier still. I don't think he's like unplayable, but I promise you would do better on Verdance. So still good because Earth cards are good, Felling is good, Bark Skin is good. He still has decent cards. He's just not on the same rate as some of the heroes up top here. Actually, maybe I think I'll even put him in C tier. I think he's got hit pretty hard. Who else? We'll put Acilio and Kano, the other wizards, in B tier. I think they're both pretty solid. If you were gonna play wizard, I would recommend Verdant still, but I think they can both do really insane things. Kano can just blow people up. I think he's favored into Verdance, probably favored into Sindra, depending on how fast you find your cards. And he has pretty decent matchup spread. I mean, he's Kano. He can technically win on turn 0. And Acilio, people have really gotten closer to solving this deck. It can do really strong things now, and I think it has a pretty good gravy matchup. I think this is a nice hero that he takes a lot of time to learn. So if you haven't played him before, I wouldn't just pick him up for Nats. But if you want to put in the months of learning, I think Acilio is a hero that would reward you. There's some heroes that are in B tier. I think B tier is kind of, for me, not for all of these, but for a lot of them, it's like the tier of heroes that are really difficult, but if you know them, they can be like A or even S tier in terms of power. And I think, for example, these 3 heroes at the end, Dash.io, Kano, and Acilio, if you're like playing them at the highest level, like perfectly, they're almost S tier in terms of power level. It's just really hard to get there. A few mistakes loses you the game on these heroes. They're all pretty fragile. I mean, all of these start under 40 life. So these are, yeah, not all of them, but some of these heroes are a bit of a skill check on yourself, even. And then who's missing out still? We need to get the Guardians in here. I'd say something like this for the Guardians. Uh, they're still not where they need to be. They got, obviously, people said, oh, Guardians free after Nu was gone. To be honest, the Guardians were kind of fine. Um, Not like obviously happy that Nu was around, but I don't think that was their only issue. I think their card pool is just genuinely too weak. I'm assuming and hoping Mastery Pack Guardian will fix that because Guardian is my favorite class. But their cards are just pretty bad. If you look at something like Spinal Crush, which is like a premium Guardian disruption attack, it costs 5. It comes in for 9, and it only works if they take 4 damage. So they can just block with 2 cards, efficiently block 6 with 2 3 blocks, and or they can block with a 2 block armor and then like a 4 block D react like Sink Below and only give 1 card. They just take 3, and you spent 3 full cards, like 2 blues and the Spinal, to basically deal 3 damage, and they can just give you 2 or 1 card. It doesn't feel that good. You compare it to something like Conqueror of the High Seas, which just came out for Gravy. It costs 1 less, comes in for 1 less as well, so it's 4 for 8 instead of 5 for 9. But it has Go again, so you can do more things after that, which is pretty huge. It only needs to hit, so they have to block all 8, not just 6. So if they block 6 like they would on Spinal, they lose their arsenal. Yeah, and it has Go again, which is pretty big. So even though you have 2 resources left over, if you pitch 2 blues for it, you can do other things with those 2 blues. Spinal Crush, you just have 1 floating that goes into the abyss at the end of turn. So it's sad that the best Guardian attacks are basically CNC, Tunic, Pummel, and those are all generics. So I would not recommend Guardian right now. The card pool is pretty garbage. If I was going to play Guardian, um, yeah, you could just play like Earth Jarl, but at that point, just play Verdance. So if you're like a defensive player that likes Guardian style, I would say play Verdance or play a Warrior. As a Guardian player, I'm playing Fang. Obviously, he's not really that Guardian like, but he blocks really well, which I like. So Yeah, Guardian, I mean, there's some decent buffs to Victor with Nugon, and he's got the new Fabled, which is nice. And that puts him in B tier, where I would have put him in C tier before High Season New being gone. But I still think we need to wait for Mastery Pack, and I'm hoping slash expecting Valda to be like a B or A tier hero after the Mastery Pack. I think she's technically released, but I'm not putting her on here because yeah, she's not really released to me until the Mastery Pack comes out. Other Guardians are all pretty bad. I don't think these Guardians will ever be playable. Maybe Betsy could be playable with some sufficient. I mean, they could be playable obviously with sufficient support, but I think we're pretty far from that support. It would take like 3 Mastery Pack Guardians or some really overpowered expansion slot cards. I kind of expect these heroes to sit in the abyss for a few years. Similar with Arachne Huntsman, I think they already said they're never going to have him be good. Teklevosson's still pretty unplayable. Probably will stay like that. Dash IE, I mean, just play Dash IO. Puffin's pretty bad. Riptide, I think, is decent, but I'll just put him in C. You could just play Azalea. The Brutes, I think KO is fine, but I think the Brutes overall are also suffering from a slightly weakened card pool. I think they're maybe a little slept on right now, but they have a pretty bad Syndra matchup, which is enough to make them not as playable. If they had a good Syndra matchup, I think they'd be a bit higher. But because Brutes traditionally do a bit poorly into aggro, they're a bit lower right now because the aggro deck is so good. But they did get some decent buffs. Like the Sea Legs is really, really a premium Brute card. So I think I could see the Brutes getting higher if Syndra hits Living Legend or gets weaker somehow. Other ninjas, I'll just put them in C tier. I mean, they're fine. I would just play Syndra as well if you wanted to play Ninja. Ira is getting an Armory deck, and we'll see if that buffs her. Katsu is here as well, I suppose. We'll see if that buffs her, but I'm a bit dubious on how much it will. Max and Azuri down here in D tier. Wouldn't really recommend playing either. Marlin, like I said, I think she just needs to be solved. I'm expecting Marlin to one day be like up here with the right deck and with maybe Azalea gone for Rangers to move over to her. I think Marlin could be really powerful, but for now, if you want to play Ranger, probably just play Azalea. She's really, really insane. Okay, so that's the tier list. I think the top 3 heroes are kind of cemented, at least in terms of play rate, at least. I think in power level as well, but in play rate for sure, you'll see mostly Syndra and Gravy at your Nats. I think Verdance is probably a little farther down the list, but will be like maybe the 4th or 5th most played. And then you'll see a mix of A tier and B tier. And then obviously you'll see a bunch of one ofs of the stuff in C and D's. A lot of people are mains, and there'll be a levy or two at your Nats, for example. But this is what I think it's going to look like. These are obviously the heroes I usually recommend is picking up an S tier hero. If you are just picking up a hero for the first time last minute, Syndra's the pick. If you want a defensive hero, I think Verdance, the like Waning Moon build isn't that difficult, so you could play that. I mean, certainly it's not as easy as Syndra. It's a hard deck, but yeah, you could pick it up if you want a defensive option, a disruptive option. Gravy, I think, takes a bit of practice, so I wouldn't pick him up last minute. But if you want to pick him up and start practicing now, I think he's a great long-term pick. And then there's a lot of decent answers below here. I hope this helps. Obviously, this is just my opinions, so I would love to hear in the comments what you think of the meta. It's kind of evolving every week. We started with, US Nats had a very different meta, ended up with Verdance winning against Gravy in the finals. The next weekend at Bologna, New won the event and hit Living Legend, which changed the format again. And then now we have this upcoming weekend. Sorry, then we had one more weekend of Nats, which was mostly dominated by Syndra. So we went Verdance win, New win in Living Legend, and then kind of a Syndra dominated weekend. And then Gravy was doing well in there as well, which is what puts them in the top 3. And then if New was still around, she would be the 4th S tier hero, but she is gone. So that's where I would put the meta right now. We might see another shakeup this next weekend. If I had to make a prediction, I would say Warrior does better than people expect. That's my prediction. We'll see some warrior wins in Nats when I think for the last like 6 months to 12 months, we've really been expecting 0 warrior wins. I think we'll actually see some warrior success this upcoming weekend. Not just because I'm on Fang. I think some Kazais are going to do well and maybe even some Duranthias. That is the tier list. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time.